A Toronto mom has now been charged with second-degree murder in her baby's death. We're going to have the latest on this developing story coming up tonight.
And the Ontario PCs have passed a divisive bill that allows bike lanes on major city routes to be ripped out.
And Christmas is now a month away, and thousands of Canada Post workers are still off the job. We're going to have a closer look at what the impact could be this holiday season.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Savage.
And I'm Lena Latifat. Thank you for joining us here on Live at 5. Police have upgraded the charge against a Toronto woman in the death of her 4-month-old baby.
CP24's Melissa Duggan joins us live with the details. Melissa.
Hi there, Bakari. Yes, it was outside of this building behind me where police were called to last week. Outside this building now, we now see a memorial. There are stuffed animals, toys, a candle, and some flowers also left behind, a tribute to a 4-month-old boy who was tragically pronounced dead a week ago. It was at this building that police were called to. They were responding to a call from a father, a man who said his baby was missing. When authorities arrived on the scene, they found a baby suffering from critical injuries. They attempted to treat the baby here on scene, rushing that 4-month-old boy to hospital, and that is where he was pronounced dead. The mother of this baby, 30-year-old Caressa Edwards, she was initially charged with failing to provide the necessaries of life, but there was an autopsy performed on this baby. After that is when the charge against the mother was upgraded to second-degree murder. Toronto police sharing that update today. Now, earlier today, we reached out to former Toronto homicide detective Mark Mendelson about this upgraded charge. Here's what he's telling us.
The autopsy sort of gave the police, certainly gave the homicide squad reasonable grounds to believe that second-degree murder was the appropriate charge as it relates to the cause and the mechanism of death. It's not first degree, so there's no suggestion of planning or deliberation by the mother in this case. But, we're going to find out horrible details as we go down the road.
Just a heartbreaking case here. As to the nature of those injuries, no other details have been released by police about exactly the condition of the baby, just that the little boy was suffering from critical injuries when he was found here. And again, we know that there is a family mourning here. Again, it was that father that reached out to authorities last week. It was on Wednesday when we first learned about this case. The woman charged, again, a 30-year-old, she did have a court appearance scheduled for earlier today. Toronto police saying the homicide unit now investigating and saying that this is the 79th homicide in our city so far this year. Back to you.
Just so horrifying. Melissa Duggan reporting live tonight. Thank you, Melissa. Well, legal arguments took place today in the sexual assault case of 5 members of Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team. Dylan
Dubé was seen leaving the courthouse this afternoon. He, Michael McLeod, and Alex Forminton, they attended today's hearing after being charged earlier this year in the alleged assault with Carter Hart and Cal Foote. They also face charges with the jury trial that's set to begin in April of next year. Lawyers for the players have said their clients plan to defend themselves against the allegations, and all 5 are expected to plead not guilty.
Well, today is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women.
And it also marks the start of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The Ontario NDP is reminding Premier Doug Ford of his commitment to support Bill 173, which declares intimate partner violence an epidemic in the province.
Bill 173, the Intimate Partner Violence Epidemic Act here in Ontario, was then taken to Nova Scotia, and the Conservative government there passed that bill in one day. In a matter of hours, that bill passed without any further debate, without any subcommittee study, without any other committee study. It immediately passed and the declaration was made. There is absolutely no excuse for the government, for this Conservative government, to not pass Bill 173 immediately and make a declaration.
Now, MPPs wore purple scarves in the legislature to mark the annual Wrapped in Courage campaign to raise awareness about violence against women. NDP leader Marit Stiles repeated the call to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic.
Just this year, there were at least 42 reported cases of intimate partner and gender-based violence, specifically deaths right here in Ontario, a teenage girl, a whole family in Harrow, a 62-year-old woman in London. These are not one-offs. This is an epidemic. 95 municipalities all across this province and 6 other provinces have declared intimate partner violence an epidemic. Why won't the Premier declare intimate partner violence an epidemic?
Violence against women and girls is a horrific crime, and our government has zero tolerance for it, Mr. Speaker, which is why we have been very clear, which is why we supported the bill that was put forward by the opposition, so that we can continue to review, hear from experts, some of our partners who are here right now, who are doing wonderful work to support women and girls and families across the province. And we have made a commitment, Mr. Speaker, to make sure they have the supports and resources to continue to provide those supports to families, Mr. Speaker.
And the NDP says that declaring intimate partner violence an epidemic, it would help survivors legally, including strengthening arguments made in custody cases. So they say that Ford committed to supporting Bill 173 back in April.
All right, let's switch gears now. I'm going to check on that drive home. Adjoa and CA Bois keeping a close eye on what that looks like. Hey, Adj.
Oh, hey, good afternoon, Lena Bakari. It has been a busy go. Just watched a problem actually clear. So a little bit of good news as you try to navigate your way out of the downtown core via the westbound lanes of the Gardner, right through Jarvis. It was a collision, did have the left lane blocked. At least that problem did clear. Don Valley Parkway on the northbound side, still pretty busy, but easing off at least at the bottom end from Bloors, where it starts to get slow and then opens up as you make your way up towards the 401. And the 401 not really easing up, very, very slow going across the top of the city, and just spotting a brand new problem. This is on the eastbound lanes of the 401 in the collectors at Weston Road. 2 center lanes out because of this stalled vehicle. Outside of camera view, if you're headed towards a Newmarket, Davis Drive unfortunately is still closed between Warden and Kennedy following a very serious collision.
This CP24 traffic report is brought to you by 407 ETR. Enjoy the journey with a stress-free commute.
Adjoa, thanks so much. Well, the Ford government has passed a controversial bill that would see the removal of bike lanes from 3 major streets in Toronto.
Bill 212 aims to address congestion by removing separated lanes on Bloor, Yonge, and University. It would also require cities to get permission to install bike lanes that would remove a lane of traffic. And CP24's Phil Perkins has more from University Avenue. Phil, okay, paint the picture for us.
All right, well, you have, Lena, kind of painted 2/3 of the picture. Basically, yeah, municipalities will have to ask the province basically for permission to build new bike lanes if it means they're removing a lane for vehicular traffic. Also, it gives the government full power to remove bike lanes that already exist along stretches of University, where we are right now. A new bike lane, massive one, very smooth, very wide, just finished completion literally months ago. It would give them power to remove that. University, Bloor, and Yonge, I mentioned that. But also a new wrinkle, it also will protect the provincial government from being sued by cyclists who get hurt or killed, so their families will be representing them, if they're riding on a stretch of these roads that used to have bike lanes and no longer have bike lanes. And so say what you want about that on the safety of bike lanes and keeping people safe. I spoke to a woman who was biking home from work. I asked her how she felt about this bill passing. Excuse me, she said her life is in danger now because basically, depending on which bike lanes they remove, she would then have to either alter her route to work and home or bike on live traffic with vehicles moving at this clip during rush hour. So what could this cost? Now, the city revealed in a report just a couple weeks ago that tearing up the bike lanes on those major routes, Bloor, Yonge, University, would cost about $47 to $48 million. Doing so would also basically just light on fire $27 million the city already spent to build these bike lanes in the first place. And then also Premier Ford talked about how these new bike lanes that would basically be replacing the ones on Bloor, Yonge University, could be on secondary roads. Well, building those new bike lanes on secondary roads would cost an unknown amount. That's what the city said, but you would think it would be a lot of money. And so people here, obviously, we've heard online, very upset by this. Multiple cyclists here right now. Does anyone want to talk about bike lanes? No. They do not. There's someone here try to get our attention, but I'm talking about cycling right now. And so that is what is currently happening right now. We don't know what stretches of Bloor Young University are going to be torn up. We can just kind of do some amateur detective work to see what Premier Ford has talked about in the past. He has groaned about the bike lanes in Etobicoke, west of Royal York, saying that residents there despise the bike lanes. Nobody uses those, so that could be a target. He's also talked about the bike lanes on University, where we are right now, Hospital Row, talking about how he's talked to first responders, saying that they have a tough time getting up and down this busy stretch because of these massive bike lanes here. So maybe they could be threatened as well. Is all of Bloor, all of Young, all of University going to be torn up? We don't know. They say stretches. What stretches? We don't know. But as I mentioned just a couple seconds ago, it could be those. But again, that is just a guess. The Ford government not being particularly clear on what their plans are for these existing bike lanes. Back to you two.
This has been so contentious. Just want to share an update with our viewers.
Yeah.
The bill has received royal assent, so it is officially law now. And we have reaction from Doug Ford coming in as well. He's tweeted, "We promise to get drivers out of gridlock by bringing sanity back to bike lane decisions, and we are getting it done." So the PCs are not backing down.
Well, the difficulty of navigating downtown, that's in the spotlight once again after members of the Utah Hockey Club, they had to walk to the game.
To the rink because there's way too much traffic. The bus is not moving at all. So it's just pretty much the whole team walking the street, 5:15 where meeting is in 1 minute to get there. So I think that's a first for everyone. Never saw that before.
Maverick Lamoureux and his teammates decided it would be faster to get off their team bus and walk to Scotiabank Arena for last night's game against the Leafs. It's not clear where the bus was stuck in traffic, but at one point the players appear to be walking under the Gardiner. And the Premier is chiming in. He says his government is focused on tackling congestion in our city.
We're really focused on the congestion in Toronto. It's the worst congested city in North America, third worst in the entire world. Even to the point last night, it was embarrassing that, the Utah Hockey Club has to get out of the bus and start walking to the hockey arena. It's just unacceptable. People are avoiding downtown. It's taking up 50% of the traffic, and we're focusing on 3 or 4 roads to get it moving.
Okay, in response, Mayor Olivia Chow says that the Santa Claus parade, that was to blame for the traffic problems that the team encountered.
The Santa Claus parade was just finishing at the time, and it was in that area they finished, and all the big floats and the people flooding out from the Santa Claus parade was jamming that whole area. And it's, once a year we have the Santa Claus parade, and with all the floats and all the cars coming out, that whole area was quite jammed out. But it was just because of that reason. Now, Santa didn't conspire together with the Leafs.
And to top it all off, the Leafs beat Utah by a score of 3-2. We'll take that win.
All right, it's 5:13, 5 degrees, feeling more like 2 above 0 outside. This is Live at 5. Limited progress in bargaining is reported as the Canada Post strike continues. The latest coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. It is day 11 of a strike by 55,000 Canada Post employees, and there is no end in sight. With Christmas just 1 month away, workers rallied outside a Canada Post facility on Progress Avenue in Scarborough over the noon hour. Members of other unions joined them. Canada Post says negotiations with the union continued over the weekend, but progress was limited. Workers say they are ready to go back to work during the busy holiday season if they get a fair deal.
These workers deserve the best. We are not asking for the latter 649. You're asking for decent pay. You're asking to give your share of this pie, and that's not much to ask for. And so we're going to continue to support you in this fight.
It is absolutely a beautiful thing you're doing. You are standing up for yourselves. You're standing up for a fair contract. You're standing up for your pensions. It is wonderful. You are coming out of this stronger than when you came in. We are with you all the way. Please know 315,000 members across Canada. We've heard nothing but great things about your strike. Keep it up. Do not stop.
A company like Canada Post, which runs on its own in terms of it generates its own revenue, etc., it cannot say it does not have enough money. Matter of fact, if you look at the whole, it's a company about $9 billion, right? It runs on a budget of about $9 billion, and it brings in more and more revenue. The question which has to be asked is, why has it lost revenue in the way it has over the last 4 years? We believe this is something which is deliberate. There's been no attempt to grow the business.
And Canada Post released a statement today noting that little progress was made during the weekend bargaining. It reads in part, quote, Canada Post now enters the busy Black Friday online shopping week effectively shut down as Cup W's national strike is now in day 11. We're down nearly 10 million parcels since the strike began, which only increases as the strike continues. And people look elsewhere to have their items delivered. And the impacts continue to be felt across the country, hitting small businesses, charities, and remote communities the most. We remain committed to reaching new agreements at the bargaining table, and talks will continue with the support of the special mediator.
A potential strike is looming at Canadian National Railway tonight.
Unifor says its members at CN Rail overwhelmingly voted in favor of strike action if a contract agreement is not reached by January 1st. The union represents thousands of workers at the railroad, including car technicians and heavy-duty mechanics. It says bargaining is set to resume on Saturday and continue until December 8th. Negotiations began in September with wages, pensions, and job security among key issues.
It is 5:18, 5 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, thousands of Microsoft 365 customers around the world are reporting issues.
Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau addressed NATO's annual Parliamentary Assembly in Montreal this morning and spoke about the importance of the alliance in an increasingly dangerous world.
We are in an extraordinarily pivotal and difficult time in the world right now. The destabilization of the rules-based order that has held and steered us so well for over 70 years. The shifting geopolitical conflicts, the rise of authoritarianism. Our challenge is that we must rise to meet, and that NATO is extraordinarily important in.
And Defense Minister Bill Blair said that he's ready to work with the incoming Donald Trump administration to speed up Canada's timeline to meet its NATO alliance spending targets.
Well, thousands of Microsoft 365 customers around the world, they're reporting issues with services like Outlook and Teams.
Microsoft acknowledged an issue impacting those trying to access its Exchange Online service or functionality within the Microsoft Teams calendar. The company says it thinks a recent change is behind the problem. Microsoft says its fix reached 98% of, quote, affected environments as of noon, but thousands of users are still reporting issues.
Well, the U.S. is heading into its busy Thanksgiving travel period this week. The holiday is Thursday. AAA predicts nearly 80 million Americans will venture at least 80 kilometers from home between tomorrow and next Monday, most of them by car. However, travelers could be impacted by ongoing weather challenges, and those flying to their destinations could be grounded by delays brought on by airline staffing shortages and an airport service workers strike.
No, also south of the border, U.S. President Joe Biden pardoned 2 turkeys today. He talked about his time in office as it draws to a close.
This event marks the official start of the holiday season here in Washington. It's also my last time to speak here as your president during this season and give thanks and gratitude. So let me say to you, it's been the honor of my life. I'm forever grateful.
Peach and Blossom are the 2 lucky turkeys from Minnesota who were saved with the Thanksgiving dinner table. I'm going to say that's Peach. Looks like a peach to me. They're named after the state flower of Delaware. They'll now head back to Minnesota to live out the remainder of their lives as agricultural ambassadors. An interesting tradition.
Well, billionaire investor Warren Buffett continued his Thanksgiving tradition with another big donation.
He's giving more than $1.1 billion worth of Berkshire Hathaway stock to 4 of his family's foundations. Buffett has previously said his 3 kids will distribute his remaining $147 billion fortune after his death. But now, realizing that his kids could die before they're able to give it all away, the 94-year-old announced he has designated successors to take over if that happens. He didn't say who they are, but says his kids approve of his choice. His kids, by the way, range in age from 66 to 71 years old.
And with U.S. Thanksgiving coming a little bit later this year, Canadians waiting for Black Friday deals are going to have less time to complete shopping before Christmas.
Yeah, a marketing professor at Queen's University says the 5 fewer days will shift how retailers advertise around the season, and she suspects stores will be doing all they can to get consumers to buy their gifts earlier. A Leger survey for the Retail Council of Canada over the summer and fall found around 25% said they wouldn't start holiday shopping until Black Friday or sometime after.
It's 5:24, 5 degrees, feeling more like 2 above 0 outside. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, we have early details about Drake's tour plans for next year. More on that straight ahead.
Try not to boy out, but I'm staying on. Keep on sending me.
Welcome back. A special sculpture commemorating the first PWHL season is on display at the Eaton Center, and we're live there with a closer look tonight at the inaugural 6. Organizers say the sculpture honors the trailblazing athletes of the league's inaugural season last year. A lot of people trying to take photos of that. The artist, as well as PWHL stars Sarah Nurse and Emma Malte, are on hand for the unveiling this afternoon. The inaugural 6 will be on display until Thursday.
I really wanted to pay tribute to what an incredible moment this is in time, and this piece was a lot of hard work to make, and I think that also is reflective with the PWHL and where they have come to today. It was a lot of hard work to get here, and I want the art to reflect that story and the base of what is the league now.
Well, Toronto hosts Boston in the PWHL season opener. That's going to be Saturday afternoon.
Pretty cool. Well, Drake is set to hit the stage early next year down under.
You hating on numbers untouchable, they got the data wrong. This is the moment I know they've been praying.
The Toronto rapper announced the Anita Maxwell tour during a live stream last night with a Quebec streamer. It's set to kick off February 9th. That's the same day as rival Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime performance. Coincidence?
Oh.
Drake says that the tour will include stops in Melbourne, Sydney, and the Gold Coast. It'll continue into March. No other information was provided, and it's not yet clear when tickets will go on sale. But Lena, you can just call them up and say we're coming, right?
Yeah, I have Drake on speed dial, obviously. It's 5:28, 5 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
Well, Ontario has passed divisive legislation today. It'll prevent municipalities from adding certain new bike lanes and remove others. A Toronto mom has now been charged with second-degree murder in her baby's death. We're going to have the latest on this developing story.
The Ontario PCs have passed a divisive bill that allows bike lanes on major city routes to be ripped out. We're live with reaction tonight.
And Christmas is now 1 month away. Thousands of Canada Post workers, they're still off the job. We'll have a closer look at what the impact could be this holiday season.
You're watching Live at 5. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Lattifat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. The foreign government has passed a controversial bill that will see the removal of bike lanes from 3 major streets in Toronto.
CP24's Phil Perkins has more from University Avenue, where there are a lot of bike lanes. What are you hearing, Phil?
Okay, well, what we know so far is that this has now reached Royalist said after it passed 66 to 27 at the legislature just a couple hours ago, meaning it has now become law. So what that does is that basically it requires municipalities like Toronto to have to ask for permission from the provincial government if they want to build new bike lanes, if it means removing a lane for vehicular traffic. It also gives the province powers to remove existing bike lanes. And in particular, they're talking about removing stretches of major arterial roads here on Bloor, Danforth, Yonge, University. We don't know what patches of these major roads are looking to be getting rid of these bike lanes. It also is going to be protecting the province from getting sued by cyclists or the families of cyclists who get hurt or are killed biking on roads where bike lanes used to exist. So there used to be a bike lane, there's no longer a bike lane, and they are hurt and or killed. The province protected from being sued. And so we heard from the city a couple weeks ago, what would this cost if the province were to go ahead with it and rip up potentially all the bike lanes on Bloor Young University? They say it would cost around $48 million. It would also completely waste the $27 million that has been spent to build some of these bike lanes. One of them just north of where we're talking about here on University Avenue on Hospital Row. It is brand new. It is massive. It is compared to all the bike lanes that I have ridden on across the city, definitely the most comfortable, and that one in particular could be under threat, because while we don't know what stretches of the Bloor Young University bike lanes are being threatened right now to be torn up by the provincial government, we do know that Premier Ford, obviously an Etobicoke guy, has referenced the bike lanes in the Kingsway, just west of Royal York on Bloor, somewhat of an eyesore for people living there, according to him, saying that they despise the bike lanes there. He's also talked about the bike lanes here on University Avenue, saying that first responders can't get to where they need to go because of that. So they could be in threat right now. And also for the cost, I mentioned the $48 million that the city pegged that it would cost to tear these bike lanes up. Premier Ford told reporters over the weekend that it is, quote, hogwash, that they can do that for cheaper. We also understand that Premier Ford talked about before that they should not be on major roads like University. It should be on secondary roads. And so to do that, this report tells us that that amount at the moment is unknown. It could be a lot of money to try to do the research and build brand new bike lanes on these secondary roads. So again, it has now become law. We'll see what they do with it. Time will tell. Back to you two.
All right, Phil Perkins reporting live from University Avenue tonight. This one's a talker, and I'm sure the story is not over just yet. Phil, thank you.
Well, Toronto police have opened a new collision reporting center dedicated to cyclists and pedestrians.
It's located in the Traffic Services Unit at 350 Dover Court Road, just north of Dundas. Police want to encourage anyone involved in a collision to report it, to help expand data collection and help inform decisions to make the city safer. The new center will be open Monday to Friday from 11 p.m. to 7 p.m.
And the difficulty of navigating downtown. Look, it's in the spotlight again. This is after members of the Utah Hockey Club had to walk to the game.
In pregame to get to the rink because there's way too much traffic. The bus was not moving at all. So it's just pretty much the whole team walking the street. 5:15 where meeting is in 1 minute to get there. So I think that's a first for everyone. Never saw that before.
I feel like something similar happened with Niall Horn at Scotiabank Arena just a few months ago.
Yeah.
Remember
it
that?
did.
So this is the story here. Maverick Lamoureux and his teammates decided it would be faster to get off their team bus and walk to Scotiabank Arena for last night's game against the Leafs. It's not clear where the bus was stuck in traffic, but at one point, the players appear to be walking under the Gardiner.
Well, Premier Doug Ford says that his government is focused on tackling congestion in Toronto, and one of the solutions is removing bike lanes.
We're going to work collaboratively with the mayor, which she believes the Bloor Street West should not be there. Previous mayor admitted that he made a mistake, and I love the guy too. Mayor Tory shouldn't have put down Yonge Street, shouldn't have put in Bloor West. Former fire chief, Chief Pegg, just came out, said he was never consulted with. It was causing delays getting to emergency locations. There was no consultation in Bloor Street as well. So we're going to work with the mayor.
And Mayor Olivia Chow is doing a little bit of defending today. She says the Santa Claus parade was to blame for the traffic problems the team encountered. Take a listen.
The Santa Claus parade was just finishing at the time, and it was in that area they finished, and all the big floats and the people flooding out from the Santa Claus parade was jamming that whole area. And it's, you know, once a year we have the Santa Claus parade, and with all the floats and all the cars coming out, that whole area was quite jammed up. But it was just because of that reason. Now, Santa didn't conspire together with the Leafs.
And to top it all off, the Leafs beat Utah by a score of 3-2.
At least the Leafs won. That's the silver lining there, I guess. Well, subway service on a section of Line 1 will end early this week.
Starting tonight until Friday night, subway service between St. Clair West and King stations will end nightly at 11 o'clock for planned track work. Shuttle buses will operate. Regular subway service will resume the following morning at 6 o'clock.
It is now 5:37, 5 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
A Toronto woman arrested in the death of her 4-month-old baby is now facing a charge of second-degree murder.
Welcome back. Police have upgraded the charge against a Toronto woman in the death of her 4-month-old baby today.
CP24's Melissa Duggan joins us live with this story and more details. Melissa.
Yeah, Bakari, a difficult one to share with you. The upgraded charges for this mother coming after Toronto police say an autopsy was conducted on the victim. And again, we know the victim is a 4-month-old boy. Police were called to the building behind me here on Roselawn off Marley, just north of Eglinton Avenue West, last week on Wednesday. The reason why they were called here, the baby's father actually reached out to police saying that his 4-month-old baby was missing. When authorities arrived here, they found a baby they described as having critical injuries. There was treatment for this baby on scene, rushed to hospital, where tragically he was pronounced dead. Now, initially, we know that the mother, a 30-year-old woman, she was charged with failing to provide the necessaries of life, and we now know that charge has been upgraded to second-degree murder. We reached out to criminal defense lawyer Joseph Newberger, asking him, if this very sensitive, emotional case does go to trial, how will those proceedings unfold? Here's what he told us.
This is very tragic, and the loss of life of a baby or a child, who are really the most vulnerable of all victims you can ever find, is extremely difficult emotionally, especially for the father and other members of the family. The investigation itself will be very difficult because police will be interviewing the father and other family members who may have had contact with the mother who's now charged, and try and understand the circumstances of, from birth to this point where the baby has been killed. And so it's very emotionally traumatic for them. And when ultimately, if this comes to a trial, this will just cause even more trauma for them.
The mother, 30-year-old Caressa Edwards, has now been charged with second-degree murder. Toronto Homicide Investigations Unit, they are still probing this case. And Lena and Bakari, I could also tell you that there is a vigil, a memorial outside of the building where this baby was found. There are toys, stuffed animals, flowers, a candle. You can certainly tell that this has struck a chord with neighbors here mourning loss of this 4-month-old boy. Back to you.
Okay, CP24's Melissa Duggan, continuing our coverage of this very tragic story. Well, legal arguments took place today in the sexual assault case of 5 members of Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team.
Dylan Dubé was seen leaving the courthouse this afternoon. He, Michael McLeod, and Alex Formanton attended today's hearing after being charged earlier this year in the alleged assault. Carter Hart and Cal Foote also face charges, with a jury trial set to begin in April of next year. Lawyers for the players have said their clients plan to defend themselves against the allegations, and all 5 are expected to plead not guilty.
Well, today's the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women.
It also marks the start of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The Ontario NDP is reminding the Premier of his commitment to support Bill 173 that declares intimate partner violence an epidemic in the province.
There's lots of studies that have been done over the years around IPV and gender-based violence that the government could look to. They don't need to reinvent the wheel, but there's nothing stopping them from making a declaration that would immediately, as the legal team here have stated, would be a game changer in many cases just by making the declaration.
And you may have noticed MPPs wore purple scarves in the legislature to mark the annual Wrapped Encourage campaign to raise awareness about violence against women. NDP leader Mart Stiles repeated the call to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic.
More women than ever before are stuck at home, unable to leave their abusers because there is no room for them in the shelters. More women are forced to stay living with their abusers because rent is skyrocketing. They cannot leave because of the cost of living. We are living in a crisis. It is an epidemic. Will the Premier do the right thing once and for all? No more studies, no more committees. Declare it an epidemic and do the right thing today.
We have passed legislations and have made investment and have made it very clear. We will work with any level of government, any partner that will help us to prevent and end violence against women in our province, Mr. Speaker. That's why Minister Williams and I joined the federal government. We signed on to the National Action Plan to end violence against women in the province, Mr. Speaker. That partnership came with an additional $162 million to help our wonderful partners who are doing great work in every community in this province to prevent violence from happening in the first place.
It is now 5:44, 5 degrees. You're watching Live at 5.
A decision on the fate of the Menendez brothers, it's been postponed. More on this next.
It is day 11 of a strike by 55,000 Canada Post employees, and there is no end in sight.
Christmas is just 1 month away. Workers rallied outside a Canada Post facility on Progress Avenue in Scarborough. This happened over the noon hour. Members of other unions joined them. Canada Post says that negotiations with the union continued over the weekend, but progress was, quote, limited. Workers say that they are ready to go back to work during the busy holiday season if they get a fair deal.
They want to give the new workers a lesser pension plan, which we're not okay with. We want to fight. We always fight for our future as well as ourselves, right? Looking at different benefits, that they want a different benefit plan, which will give us not what we have now, like a pool of benefits. So it's always a key thing for us, the working conditions, benefits. It's, yes, wages are always a issue. We did take during COVID, with the tough times, we took a 2-year extension with very minimal raises to get us through this point.
Every one of the striking workers that you see here is willing to go back to work at this very moment. Canada Post need to come to an agreement. They need to negotiate. They could have done this 1 year ago, but they have refused to honor the negotiation and delay every single year. Every time there is a contract negotiation, then delay it, and we could have actually negotiate, and we don't have to be in this position that we are here today.
And Canada Post released a statement today noting that little progress was made during weekend bargaining. That reads in part, Canada Post now enters the busy Black Friday online shopping week effectively shut down as Cup W's national strike is now in day 11. We are down nearly 10 million parcels since the strike began, which will only increase as the strike continues and people look elsewhere to have their items delivered. The impacts continue to be felt across the country, hitting small businesses, charities, and remote communities the most. We remain committed to reaching new agreements at the bargaining table, and talks will continue with the support of a special mediator.
Right now it's 5:50, 5 degrees, feeling more like 2 above zero outside. Let's see if the 5 o'clock commute is cooling out. Or heating up.
It is. It's doing all of those things, slowing down and heating up. So if you're making your way out, a couple of problems to make for a very busy Monday evening drive. So if your travels take you on to the 403, this is the westbound 403 ramp that takes you to Cawthra Eastgate. It's the right lane that is blocked. This is following a collision. So that's creating a little bit of a bottleneck. Headed towards the westbound 41 coming out of Whitby. You can just see the flashing lights of this transport truck. At one point, this truck, which was involved in a crash, was blocking the center lane. Looks like everything cleared over to the side. And on the Gardner, we had some problems on the westbound lanes of the Gardner in the collectors just past Kipling. Center lane was out with the collision, so the delays are still there from Jarvis. A reminder, in Newmarket, problems persist. We still are dealing with the closure of Davis Drive, shut down between Kennedy and Warden. Lena Bukhari, I'll send it back to you, and I'll see you at the new location.
All right. See you there, Adjoa.
Welcome.
Thanks so much. Well, a judge in Los Angeles postponed a hearing today over the possible release of Eric and Lyle Menendez.
The brothers were convicted in the 1989 murders of their parents. The judge delaying the hearing until January so that he can hear from a new district attorney. Well, that issue is new evidence and whether it justifies a reexamination of their convictions.
Both made impassioned pleas with the judge to send the brothers home, and like I said, very moving. Terry testified under oath that she was very close to Jose and practically grew up with him. And Joan as well talked about Kitty and all of the good things that they've done.
Well, a recent Netflix documentary series helped revive interest in the case. It supported the brothers' claim that they were sexually abused by their father for years. The outgoing Los Angeles District Attorney is in support of their release.
You're watching Live at 5. Coming up, we'll talk to Toronto City Manager about the results of the Listening to Toronto survey. We'll tell you what that is next.
The city has released the results of its Listening to Toronto survey, which gathered feedback from residents on a wide range of services, including transportation, public safety, and social services.
And for more on the results, we're joined live by City Manager Paul Johnson tonight. Paul, thank you for joining us here on CP24. Lots of key takeaways. You asked about everything from city services to transit to cleanliness. One of the big storylines, 2 in 5 Torontonians say they don't feel safe in our city. Let's begin there.
So safety is always a concern, and we wanted to ask people exactly how they did feel about the safety of this community. The good news is generally in their neighborhoods, particularly in the daytime hours, there's a good sense of safety. That drops in the evening. That's not atypical. That's not something that's new, but it's important for us to recognize that. Again, all of this work of this polling data that we've received through this survey is about how we improve our services, change our services to meet the needs of Torontonians. So I think that's an important one for us to consider as we develop new parks, as we maintain our parks and our streetscape, and as we support our partners in the Toronto Police Service.
Okay, so Paul, how does that factor into 58% of Torontonians being satisfied with the overall cleanliness in the city? 16% saying they're very satisfied.
Yeah, so, one of the big things we've heard a lot about is cleanliness. And I think one of the stories that came out of this survey results for me is people are very satisfied with the interaction they have with the Toronto Public Service in the services, be it in libraries, in our rec centers, in our parks. It could be our social services, childcare, and senior services. They do have some concerns about our infrastructure, and some of that is the way that we take care of our buildings. Some of that is the way the washrooms, for instance, in parks are. So the satisfaction in our parks, very, very high with the parks themselves, not so high when it comes to the washroom amenities that are there. Again, those are really important takeaways as we build our capital budgets, as we look at how we can better maintain those assets so that the satisfaction with all of the things that go on in our city parks can be very high.
And I want to ask you why the City of Toronto wanted to do this. Why did you want to reach out to residents, and what were you looking for?
So 2 things. We're an organization that wants to hear from Torontonians about how they're feeling about their city and in particular the services that we provide. The second thing is we're an organization that's always seeking to get better. This type of work has not happened. So we do have data, great data from our 311 service, great data that comes in through our programs. But as this survey results showed, only about a quarter of Torontonians actually interact with the city in ways. It could be through 311 or coming to our desk services. So this gave us a chance to go broadly and talk to all Torontonians and understand what's happening. It's another piece of the puzzle. It certainly doesn't overtake all the other data we have, but we want more data so that we can make better decisions.
All right, City Manager Paul Johnson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, today marks the end of a big chapter in the life of CP24.
Yeah, it's been an emotional day for a lot of us here in the building. This is our last day of broadcasting from 299 Queen Street West. Can't believe I'm saying that. This landmark heritage building has been our home since we signed on the air more than 25 years ago on March 30th, 1998. As of tomorrow, we'll be joining you from Scarborough and our brand new studio at 9 Channel 9 Court, which is also home to CTV Toronto and the CTV National News. What is not changing is what you count on us for, delivering Toronto's breaking news wherever it happens every day. As I was saying, Bakari, this has been an emotional day. A couple of ways to describe 299 Queen Street West: legendary, iconic. It has been such a privilege to call this our professional home. There have been some incredible people who've walked through this building, the hallways over the years, and what an honor it's been. And this really feels like the end of an era, but we are so excited for what is next for CP24.
Yeah, pleasure and an honor to be able to carry the torch. Thank you very much. Right now, it is 5:59, 5 degrees, feeling more like 2 above zero. This is Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
And thank you so much for watching. CTV News at 6 is coming up next.